A chilling news report about a notorious criminal, Colin Evans. Once the prime suspect in the horrifying disappearance and presumed murder of 5 young women, Colin was arrested but managed to slip through the fingers of law enforcement, evading capture for months. But his freedom came to a brutal end after a violent bar fight turned deadly, leading to the murder of a man. Though the 5 women's fates were never officially tied to him, Colin was convicted of the bar killing and sentenced to 15 years in prison. Now, after serving just 5 years, this dangerous man is eligible to request parole. In the present, Colin is at the courthouse, giving testimony to the parole board members. He claims that bar fights often get out of hand, and he could have easily died that day. He also expresses his regret for that man's death, saying he's now a humble and changed man. Unfortunately, his carefully crafted facade cracks when one of the board members, a doctor, steps in. He reveals that Colin is a skilled liar, extremely intelligent, who becomes violent whenever things do not go his way. Moreover, the doctor highlights the bar fight, where Colin beat the guy to death, simply because the man looked his girlfriend in the eye. Upon hearing this, an upset Colin tries to intervene but is ordered to sit down. The doctor lets other members decide freely, but mentions that the families of the 5 women are gathered outside, praying that Colin will not be released. This makes Colin even angrier. In the end, the chairman informs Colin that the vote must be unanimous, and his parole will not be reconsidered for another 5 years. Later, Colin is being transported back to prison in a van, accompanied by a guard and a driver. But on the way, he appears to have a bloody nose and asks for help. The guard approaches to give him a tissue, but Colin seizes the opportunity to grab his gun and point it at his head. The driver, now on high alert, immediately draws his own weapon, but Colin calmly tells him to put the gun down, saying he doesn't want any trouble. The terrified driver complies and sets the gun down. But unfortunately, Colin wastes no time in shooting both of them in cold blood. Hey, imagine this. You're just trying to be a decent person on a stormy night, right? That's exactly where we pick up with Terry. She's juggling 2 kids, her daughter Ryan and baby Sam, while her marriage to Jeffrey is hanging by a thread. The house is getting some repairs, but the workers bail early because of the big storm rolling in. Her best friend Meg swings by and sees how stressed Terry is. She calls out Jeffrey for not stepping up, especially since he's heading out for a golf trip with his dad. Terry and Meg decide to have a girls' night in to blow off some steam. Meanwhile, Colin is out for revenge and freedom. He tracks down his ex, Alexis. They had history before he went to prison. He sweet-talks her at first, talking about running away together with fake passports. But when he realizes she's moved on and was seeing someone else, his jealousy explodes. In a brutal scene, he kills her in a fit of rage. The storm gets worse. Colin crashes his stolen car and ends up at Terry's doorstep, pretending to be a regular guy who just needs to use the phone for a tow truck. Terry, being the kind-hearted person she is, lets him in to wait it out and even patches up his head wound. They chat a bit. She mentions her husband's a lawyer and lies that he'll be home soon, and Colin spins a story about his cheating ex-fiancée. Terry feels sorry for him and says that marriage isn't that great either. She reveals how she used to be powerful, but now her husband sees her differently. Upon hearing this, Colin begins to flatter her, telling her that she is still beautiful and fierce. Not long after, the doorbell rings, and Terry thinks it's the tow truck people. But it turns out to be Meg, who has shown up for their girls' night. Terry introduces her to Colin and explains his situation, and he is now waiting for the tow truck. An excited Meg then takes out the wine she brought and suggests they can all share it. Of course, Meg thinks Colin is good-looking, and she casually asks Colin where he lives, so he mentions a street called River Road. Meg reveals that she's a realtor and knows almost everyone in that area. Meg, growing bolder with each sip, starts flirting with Colin. He watches her closely and suddenly asks if she's the type who avoids settling down. But she casually replies that she'll only commit if she meets the right person. Soon after, Terry rushes upstairs to soothe her crying baby, while Meg and Colin slip into the garage and start smoking. The mood is relaxed until Meg suddenly turns to him and asks if something is going on between him and Terry. Without hesitation, he says they're having an affair. A stunned Meg cannot believe Terry didn't tell her. Upon hearing this, Meg decides to find out the truth and calls for Terry. But Colin suddenly attacks her with a shovel and silences her forever. Not long after, when Terry comes downstairs, Colin tells her that Meg didn't want to stay and just left. Surprised, Terry wonders if her friend was upset and decides to call her. But then, her eyes land on Meg's umbrella, which is still at the house. A cold dread creeps up her spine, but she forces herself to stay calm. Terry then heads to the kitchen to call the cops, but to her disbelief, the landline isn't working. Turns out Colin has unplugged all the wires. Even worse, she notices that he has taken all the knives. Terry calls out for Colin, but he is nowhere to be seen. The first thing she does is rush to check on her kids. Baby Sam is fine, but she finds Colin playing with Ryan in her room. Terry also notices the gun behind him and urges him to leave her daughter alone, and leads him out of the room. While the two are heading downstairs, Terry grabs a fire extinguisher and uses every ounce of her strength to attack Colin from behind. She rushes upstairs to grab her kids, but the psycho gets up and immediately orders her to put the kids back down, which Terry has no choice but to oblige. Moments later, while Colin grabs something to wear, Terry locks herself in a room where, thankfully, a telephone is working. She frantically calls 911 and reports the entire situation to them. But the psycho soon breaks inside, leaving a desperate Terry with no choice but to grab a nearby knife and slash his abdomen before running away. Despite being wounded, Terry follows her and eventually corners her in the kitchen downstairs. Here, Terry reveals that she's already called the cops, and it's over for him. She pleads with him to leave before they arrive, so no one has to suffer anymore. But the madman has another insane idea in mind. He orders her to grab the kids, so they can all leave together. With no other option, Terry obliges and rushes to get her kids. As they reach the garage, she comes across a harrowing sight, Meg's lifeless body lying there. Despite this, Terry holds back her emotions and gets in her car, which she begins driving under Colin's instructions. Terry spots a police car in the distance and quickly flashes her lights when Colin doesn't look in front. Within moments, the sirens wail, and the patrol car speeds toward them, forcing her to pull over. When Colin sees this, he coldly warns Terry to stay calm and act normal, or the baby will suffer the consequences. An officer steps out of the car and begins to interrogate them. The cop senses that something is definitely wrong and asks Terry to step out of the car for a conversation. He then questions what's happening, but a frightened Terry claims that the man is actually her lover, and they're planning to spend time together since her husband is out of town. The cop says it's none of his business, but advises her not to involve the kids in this. He then asks if she deliberately flashed her lights to get his attention, and if her life is in danger. Meanwhile, Colin places Sam in the car seat and starts preparing his gun. Colin shoots the cop to death. Terry watches in horror as Colin drags the officer's lifeless body into a ditch. Soon, Colin takes them to Alexa's house, where Terry puts the kids to bed in one of the rooms. After that, Colin forces Terry into the bathroom, demanding she find a first aid kit to treat his wound. During this, she is shocked to see Alexis's dead body, so Colin introduces her to Alexis, explaining that she was his ex-fiancée who cheated on him. Just then, Terry's car begins ringing outside due to the heavy storm. Colin tries to turn it off using the keys, but it's not working, and so he ties Terry's hands and feet before heading outside to turn off the car manually. Moments later, Terry hears a phone ringing near Alexis' dead body. She desperately grabs a broken vase and saws through her restraints until she's finally free. But when she picks up the phone and hears the voice on the other end, she freezes in shock. It's Jeffrey. He says he's been waiting for her at the hotel all night, but she hasn't shown up. In a shocking twist, we learn that Jeffrey is the man Alexis has been dating and Colin deliberately went to their house to confront him. Feeling betrayed, Terry tells her husband that his goddamn girlfriend is dead, and he's stunned to hear her voice. She insists he call the police and abruptly hangs up the phone. She then rushes to the children's room and decides to escape through the window. Terry uses a blanket as a rope in her desperate attempt to save herself and her children. When Colin returns and sees Terry missing, he rushes to the children's room, where he notices the blanket rope hanging from the window. And so, he hurries outside to catch up to them. However, it turns out to be just a ruse, as Terry and the kids are still in the house. She locks her children in a closet and grabs a knife for self-defense before quietly heading upstairs. When Colin doesn't find her outside, he begins looking for Terry downstairs. Seeing this, she intentionally makes a noise and lures him toward her. And then, when he arrives upstairs, she plunges the knife into his already wounded abdomen. As he attempts to strangle her, Terry uses an object to knock him unconscious. But as the woman tries to leave, Colin wakes up again and grabs her feet. She manages to reach Colin's gun and shoots the psycho several times, until he falls out the window to his death. In the aftermath, several police cars show up outside the house, along with Jeffrey. The cheating husband immediately apologizes and tries to explain that his relationship with Alexis was a mistake. Terry realizes he was the reason she and her children were nearly killed, then walks away, finally ending their marriage for good. Some time has passed. Terry and the kids are moving into a new house. We see that Terry has finally regained control of her life and is returning to her profession, reclaiming her strength and independence.